And we are now live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
And here we are.
There you go.
There you go. So there you go. It's a couple of days after Canadian Day. So did you guys do anything? You fireworks? You burn a city down like we do here in America? Anything?
Yeah, there was a bit of fireworks, a couple of days of fireworks, pre Canada Day and Canada Day. So
very nice.
oh, it's
well,
good.
This show airs on July 4th. So this is happy July 4th to all the Americans watching.
There you go, and wishing them as well all the health in the world for
There
July 4th.
Yes, because pretty soon it'll be Orange Day. Anyway,
well, we all have our bridge to cross, I guess. We'll call it that. And today we've got a fantastic illustrator. We're going to talk about the time and the processes of things have changed in illustration dramatically from the 60s through the 80s on how art is produced. And Dale Cooper from BC will be talking about, he was a major illustrator for some of the Winter Olympics. And we will just talk to him about some of his processes and, the times and the changes and how he got into his business and when the hell he wants to get out, maybe get into.
And before the show, he's going to tell us how he got started in art. We purposely stopped him so that you guys have something to talk about when he comes in.
He's primed and ready.
That's got to be a good story. He's primed and ready. So we should bring him in and I'm going to disappear. So there's Dale, everybody. Hello, Dale. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there we go.
You and Paul have it. So you guys do your thing and I'll see you guys later.
Well, good day to you, sir.
Good day to you.
Yeah. Well, we get by and as, we got through Canada Day, which is, I guess, our big event. We got a lot of people, quite proud of where we live. We're very privileged to live where we are and to have what we have. Yeah, well, we're talking. When I looked at some of your work, the early stuff, it just reminded me of the early days when I went to college because everybody wanted to draw and illustrate like some of the fantastic artists that we used to follow, the Bob Peaks and the Bernie Fuchses of the world in English as well, and some of the great typographers of the day, the Rands and Paul Rand and such. But
yeah,
this stuff all kind of came in a rush to me when I saw your work, and I thought, oh my goodness, we have to bring you on and talk about the processes and the times and changes that we're going through a little bit. So, but as an illustrator, your background, you've illustrated for a number of different posters for some of the Winter Olympics and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, I did my big break was the 88 Winter Olympics in Calgary.
Oh, in Calgary.
There was a call out for artists on the NewsHour, BC NewsHour. So I got in touch with them and I did one painting of a bobsleigh and took it into her, and she took it to a show in Calgary, and the rest was history. I did four posters for those games.
Yeah, those are the days that you could walk into an office and things would happen, and you can't get in through a door anymore these days. Everything's digital, right? You've got to send me an email, send me a PDF, send me this. You got to still know the people to get through the email door. But so that representative, has she or he represented you for other things as well?
Yeah, she had the rights for commemorative posters for the games, and so she put a call out to artists, and she got a number of different artists. But the one image that I did, she took it to Calgary, and the logo on it was Petro-Canada's logo. And so they said, we want it right now. So that was a big break.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's as an illustrator, knowing what to put in the images becomes really, really important. Because that basically was basically a cold call is what you did. Like concept idea, here it is, right? And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
you've got to bait the hook well in those ones. Like I said, it's that cold call, and they're really hard to do, to figure out what's in other people's minds and what's the committee going to want and what's the client going to want. And you're
Yeah.
only, you're as the illustrator, you're downwind of everything. Like you have to receive all these input, I'll call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you find
Well,
that
I used to use the graphic artist's guide to illustration. It was a fairly thick book that came out, and it had literally thousands of different people that wanted art and galleries and just you name it, eh? And so I got a number of projects from that book in the early days. And then one thing led to another, and I got into sports and had a number of different guys that ended up giving me work and keeping me going.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get Stephen to load our first image, and then we can control what we're doing here from there.
Sure.
There we go. Yeah, so this gives people kind of the idea where kind of stuff that you did. So again, we talk about this sports,
Yeah.
golf. So were you doing work for like golf magazines and sports magazines, Sports Illustrated, stuff like that, or?
Well, mostly I was published by a publisher called Art and Motion, and they were a big publisher. They did shows all over the world and framed up images, and I did this one here was an art card, and I did a number of art cards, about 30 of them, I think, and about 6 or 7 were golf. And that's what this is, one of those images.
Right. No. And I think when we look at illustration, the difference between what is the difference between illustration and a painting? Can you define what that is? Like, if is there a difference between the two, or can
Well,
you define that a bit?
yeah, the difference is like this one I painted for myself. And if it was for a customer, I would have to detail the image to what they wanted. And so that was the big difference is doing work as an illustrator. I have to take into account the customers, what they wanted, that kind of thing, and then apply my own skills to that.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
they're basically commissions. That's what
yeah,
when you look at it, the same process. But I
yeah.
guess I was defining is there a real difference between a person doing a painting, not whether it's for yourself or not? I guess the actual act of painting is probably similar. You're using mediums that are similar. Subject matter may be, I mean, you can do commissions as a painting as well. And the guy wants his barn and his family and his dog in that, and they called it a painting. But is it an illustration when you've been asked to put specific items into that in a collage manner, or in a background or somewhere, or create an environment for that mood or thing that you're trying to, I guess, go and do? But illustration is kind of motivated towards sales a lot of times, is it not?
Yeah, it is. One example, a good example of illustration was I got a commission to do a cover of the program for this memorial golf tournament. And what I did, what they wanted me to do is they got a high bidder. And what I would do is go down to the coast and I would photograph them. And then I would do a painting of them in a scene that they wanted, and then they would put it on the cover, and they would put a write-up inside the magazine too. So that was a good example of illustration.
Yeah. So you ended up doing a lot of the research yourself.
Yeah.
In those days, I think a lot of it was by the hoof, right? You're walking, and you actually took a camera and had the film developed, and you went through those processes. And I remember those days a little bit. The anxious moment of waiting to see whether you actually got anything on your film.
Yeah, exactly.
That you could use. And now it's digital, you don't even worry about it. In those days, there was $1 a shot, basically.
Yeah.
In those days. But so what's happened to illustration in this last, I can even say 20 years? Like, is it still vibrant, or is it changed quite a bit, or how have you adapted?
It has changed quite a bit. It's one example is one of my favorite artists is Drew Struzan, who does movie posters, or did movie posters. He's retired now. One of the great illustrators of all time. And what he did was he would do movie posters like he would do a painting, and they would reproduce it as a movie poster. And all the process leading up to that was just incredible, what he had to do to get that image published and out. And then he came up against another illustrator who did it digitally. And he was in line for this poster of a movie coming out. It was, I can't remember what the name of it was. And what happened was the art director for the poster went with a digital, because they could do it much faster, and that kind of thing, using Photoshop. And so he lost out on probably 3 or 4 posters just from that one.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it came down to digital. Is it's quicker. They can make adjustments. That was the big thing. The client wants this moved here. They want that changed here. It's a little difficult when you've already half painted the painting already, and they decide on a major change.
Yeah.
You've been through a few of those?
Yeah, I've been through a few of those. I had a national, there was a national chain, I think it was Mr. Lube, and they wanted their brochure done. And so it was through an ad agency in Vancouver. And so I went in, I met with them, and they gave me a mock-up that a graphic designer did. And it was, I think, 4 or 5 pages, and it was in a booklet form. And so what they wanted me to do was illustrate that. Well, it was really not, it just didn't work out, because they wanted my style, and doing exactly what was in the brochure.
Yeah.
So I did that. And it was a loose watercolor style. But when I took it in, the thing is, they needed to go with the booklet, because it was all approved. And so I went and I illustrated it in my style. Well, it's all different. So I lost that job just because my style.
Well, they should have known your style though when they hired you, right?
Yeah,
they
exactly.
knew your style, what was going. So it was their fault, because they should understand that. For an artist to change their style to mock another artist's style, or to try to follow a graphic designer's idea, it's difficult to do. And it's one of those things. I mean, I've been behind the graphic design desk as well, where we've hired illustrators, but we try really to leave some leeway to the illustrator to value add to the piece of work. It
Yeah.
was always important that, why else did you hire this artist? You want their skill set, you want their ideas, and you said, this is an outline, but give us your best and your input. And we tried that for most of my years that I was in the graphic business for 30 years. So you had more success with that. Yes, you had changes from the client, and you're doing all kinds of crazy things. In those days, everything was very expensive to make changes at late stages, whether it's at the film stage when it's just going to press. That's usually when they decide there's something wrong. They say, oh my goodness, really? Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, changes are they're just so hard to do, especially in watercolor, because I'd have to do a new painting.
basically that's what has to happen, and otherwise you can see we've tried all kinds of things where you paint a figure in on a separate piece of paper and you can put it in. But in those days you had to scan it, and you could strip it in, but it had a hard edge on it. You couldn't get the watercolor soft edge. You had to, because they'd cut it out with a piece of ruby and create a mask for that image to knock it out of the negative. And you just couldn't do it. I mean, and the process was very, very mechanical, but I kind of liked it in it. It simplified things a little bit. It made people make decisions in those early stages a lot of times. Yes, and they had to pay for expensive, time and a half, and different things went on when there was changes, but occasionally, but nowadays, I think changes are imminent. They're going to happen if every job as an illustrator in digital, I would think. Because the client knows about digital and there's no mystery. They can't paint like this skier here. The client can't just go in. He has to hire somebody to do that because he doesn't have the skill set. But the graphic designer probably could take that and move that guy, switch him around, do all kinds of things with it.
Oh yeah.
And with all the filters that are available now with Photoshop. This is a beautiful shot. I mean, I love this energy that's here, this skier that's coming down the hill. We'll just describe it a little bit, but
this image I did for the Olympics in '98, and it was Steve Podborski coming down the slope. I did a similar one that was published as a poster in '88. And I did this one just for myself because I wanted, I really liked the first image I did. And so I did this. And there was an organization in Ontario that phoned me up and wanted to know if I would allow them to use this image as the definitive guide for composition.
wow.
And I said, sure, go ahead.
So did you just let them have it, or they pay you a bit?
No, they didn't pay me. They just wanted to use it for an example, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't reproduce it or anything, so there was no money for it. But it was kind of it puffed me up a little bit, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's like, we all have to go through those days of exposure. We've always had those kind of conversations of dying of exposure, but it's nice when you can let a piece go and let them use a piece like that in a trust situation. And you never know, stuff does come back sometimes through a word of mouth thing, and you might get a job somewhere down the road, but it's always a what if, right?
This image also was used for the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. And it was reproduced as prints, and they bought out all the prints, the Olympic Committee, and used this as gifting for all the Olympic Committee members. Yeah. And so it was, I got about 20 or 30 left, but it was signed by Steve Podborski, who's the skier, and myself. And it was titled 2010 Olympic Bid Committee. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, you get some remuneration and some other stuff comes down the pipe from it, I guess, as well. So it's kind of one of those images that it can be there for many years. You don't really know what year it is. So it's got a universal edge about it, right? There's a timelessness about it a little bit. We're still skiing on skis. That's, is what I'm saying. You haven't gone into that, but no. So you're talking about you're getting into art, your art journey. How did that happen?
Well, back in 81, I think it was, or 82, I was working for the City of Burnaby in the sanitation department, garbage man. And we were at the dump emptying our truck, and I stepped in a hole and tore my foot up. So I was laid up for about 4 months. And my wife and I were walking through, I was hobbling on crutches, walking through the Woodward's department store. And I guess I had been driving her crazy because she reached up and she pulled down this Learn to Draw kit. And she said, "Why don't you try this? You're driving me crazy." So I did. The first day I did a couple of drawings, and she would come home every day and say, "Wow, those are really good," which is, like a kid, you want to do more.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to a grade 12 art class, and my instructor there, Tom Ma, told me that I could take this as far as I wanted it to go. Well, the light went on, and I ended up doing a bunch of drawings for a portfolio, and I applied at Kwantlen College in Surrey, and I got accepted to their graphics and visual design program. And so that was my big break, really, getting into that.
Yeah. That's interesting. You mentioned Tom Ma. Now, is he not Willie Ma's brother? I think
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He used to do a lot of well, they would send him bones, like dinosaur bones, and he would do drawings of them and illustrate them. And very talented.
Yeah. I think that is the same. I think they're the same brothers. Yeah, they're friends with. Actually, I know Willie, his brother, but I think anyway. I've seen some of Tom's work. It is amazing as well.
Yeah.
You've got here. Was this busting? I guess is what you've named it. Is this from your mind, or is this from actual rodeo, Calgary, or somewhere like that, or is it for something?
Where I live up in Armstrong, BC, it's a rodeo area. There's a big rodeo every year, and there's rodeos all around in Falkland and other places. And I did this one just because I wanted to do a rodeo image. And I went out to the rodeo and photographed a bunch of different events. And this one came out, and I said, I got to do this one.
Yeah.
And so I did this and ended up selling it right away.
Yeah, there's. I can see why. It's a really dramatic piece. So this looks like there's a bit of wet into wet to happen. Is this a watercolor initially?
Yeah. This is a watercolor, and what I do is I mask out the figure, and then I just go crazy with the background and just apply wet and wet and spatter and you name it. And then I peel off the mask and paint the figure in. Right. And so that's what I've done with most of my images.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's nice that you work from your own material. I mean, it's so much stuff now is clip art of some or sourced from, everything from National Geographic magazines and online stuff. So,
yeah,
it's one of those things of copyright and trying to make it your own image. And but I think doing your own photography is that other skill set that I guess as a illustrator you need that, because that's part of the creativity and
Yeah.
that inspires the next stage to what you're working on. Where if you're sort of sourcing through an archive of, say, bull, steer wrestling, you've got to start hunting through all these things. Where when you're there live, you say, "I like this one," and you go and you just shoot, and you stay in that zone, right? And you just
Yeah.
you take the images that they're appeal to you. So
Yeah. I
this,
always did my own photography, and I always got like this fellow here in the golf image. He was a local golfer out at the golf course. He was an instructor there. And so I went out and I did a photo shoot with him. And again, it was film. And I just shot a bunch of images. And this one just looked like it had to be painted.
yeah, yeah. I like the way they feather in and out. I mean, you don't see a lot of that kind of illustration right now these days. They like to, bleed everything out, the full image all the way across the page, or different types of design formats. But these ones do leave room for that art director to put copy in there as well. Does that come into play at all when you're doing the illustration? That now this one was probably done for yourself, though, right? Correctly? Is this?
Yeah, this one was done for my publisher, and it was
Oh,
published as an art card. And
yeah.
so I did about 15, 16 golf images for them, and they published them as art cards. And I got some nice royalty checks from that.
That's
So that was
that's what
good.
we're going to talk about. Yeah. Well, that's where the money comes from. You produce a piece of work. If you sell it, the original, it's gone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you did get some revenue from it. But when you can get yourself into that other area where you can earn revenue from publishing in another manner, right? Rather than
Yeah.
you doing the prints and all, selling the prints and all those things. It's when a publisher is taking care of that for you and to get the royalty check. It's a nice thing to have. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you move kind of between figurative work and some animals. And now you do some bit of wildlife. A little bit of wildlife, or is that one of your things that you like as well?
I did a fair bit of wildlife just because I really enjoy it. And it's like getting this image. Again, I went out to the Vancouver Game Farm and photographed all these eagles. They had bald eagles and golden eagles in this big pen. And so I went out and photographed them, and I got this image, and it was just such a dramatic image that I had to paint it.
Yeah.
And sold the original right away too.
I wonder why. It's just pretty darn good. So titles become kind of important a little bit with you as well. I think, how do you come up with these titles for your works? I mean, this doesn't say Golden Eagle, right? This one,
Yeah.
you.
Well, I being a creative person, I really think that the whole package should be creative. And so I've always just looked at the image and over, and then came up with a decent title that's not just descriptive of what is in the painting, but it's something that you can attach to the painting and get to know it like that.
Yeah.
So it's been, I've always done that. I've always thought that as a creative person, you got to create the title too, because that goes with the painting.
Yeah, it's part of the inspiration as well, but you're not really leading the viewer down the road and telling them exactly. You've left some room for them to put a bit of themselves into understanding what this is about. And it's kind of, it feels very Andrew Wyeth to me, and hopefully that's a compliment.
Oh yeah, I love Andrew Wyeth.
His the color palette, and you know, the simplicity of a figure. You know, Andrew Wyeth, he'd do a bucket hanging on a wall, and you just go, oh my god, like it's just like wow, and it's just a bucket on the wall, right? And it's just the color of the wall or stuff. It's just amazing, and that comes from experience. You cannot create that digitally. I don't care what anybody says. It's the texture of the paper. It's how the pigment works with, like you said, wet into wet, and you know, there's that. It's just intuitive. A lot of it, you just kind of understand what it needs as an
Yeah.
illustrator. So, how long have you been illustrating? How many years have been?
Well, I graduated in 1986, so it's over 30 years now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
had a lot of
I
images.
hate to break it. You're closer to 40 years.
Uh,
I lose a decade myself at times when I'm thinking about it. You know,
yeah.
time moves on, and so what kinds of things are you working on now? Like,
Well, this image here, I did it in a different style. I did it on board. So actually
okay.
now what I'm doing is I'm working in acrylic on board. And I still tried to get that watercolor feel to it. And then again, I masked out the figure and did the background, and then unmasked the figure and painted it in.
Right.
And yeah,
So
and this was quite a large painting, 30 by 40.
oh, okay. No, it's beautiful. The so your pigments are still fairly, they're not really, excuse me, opaque or and thick, right? You don't paint in an impassioned manner. It's still more. Is it more watercolor like in the treatment of the acrylic?
Yeah, the acrylic is very versatile. I love using it as a watercolor effect,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and then I can go in acrylics and paint the figure in with great detail.
So,
So
do you use airbrush as well and some different
yeah,
things?
I airbrush this figure, and then I go in with, after I airbrushed it, I go in with colored pencil and bring out the details.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
this one, actually the photograph I took he had a branch in his talons, and I decided, no, let's do it this way, and I put a snake in there, and I called it Lord of the Air.
yeah. No. Yeah, I see videos now. You see Goldens coming down and snatching fish out of the water, and it's quite amazing that they have that dexterity to do that. It's just, and you have amazing wingspan on these things. These birds are big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but just looking at you get a real nice feeling for this one. It's like it's got a real full. There's energy in it, and I think that's what you're kind of capturing as well. It's a very majestic bird, very
Yeah,
beautiful.
they are.
So this is that initial shot that we started out with on the. I had it cropped a little bit for our lead image. This is a golfer in the sand trap.
Yeah. Well,
That's kind of where I live. Usually, is in the sand trap or in the bush. Usually,
yeah,
when I'm golfing.
exactly.
Yeah,
Well, what's interesting is if you take the figure out, it's an abstract painting.
very much so.
And so that's what my premise was. I studied a lot of artists when I first started painting, and Morton Solberg was an artist that I really admired. And so I took little bits and pieces of what he did and created my own style. Took me about 100 paintings, but I got it after that. but it's basically what I do is I create, I combine the abstract with the real. And then you've got something for everyone. And it becomes a realistic painting, and people don't know why, but you can't walk by it and not look at it.
Right. Yeah. And I think, well, there's some areas that they can relate to. They know what a sand trap looks like. But the
Yeah.
thing is, like you said, there's this abstract in the foreground, which can almost be, it's just the shadows that come across the green
Yeah.
or the fairway and some different. So you left a lot of room for people to, especially golfers, they can relate to a lot of this. They've been there a little
Yeah.
bit, or they want to be there, see how we come out of the, that's me getting out of the sand trap in one
Yeah.
shot. And, but I think that's the kinds of things that, you know, like this is being golf. It's I guess, I don't know. It's a classy game. I'll put it that way. That has huge frustrations in it for the inexperienced, but even for the professional. And this one can relate to both, right? The professional guy can relate to this as far as the amateur can relate to exactly the same image.
Yeah.
So it has diversity, you know, or you know, it's diverse, but in its market, I guess I'll call it market because it is an illustration.
Yeah.
And you understand that people can understand. This could be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and you know what it's about, right? You get a little of an idea. So, well, I maybe want to read that article, and I
Yeah.
think so. Is there so a lot of times there's a story, I guess, with a lot of things. Well, not even in a regular painting, you always talk about what is your story? Like, is there a story in here? Because people are trying to find things, even in a just abstract painting. They're trying to figure out, is it about color? Is it about shape, light, or just the actual field of color? But you are actually manipulating nature and putting a lot of collaging, I guess we'll call it, these images together.
Yeah. Well, this one, again, I photographed this big buck at the Vancouver Game Farm, and I just wanted to put him in a spot where he would be really regal. And this one turned out really good. It's been one of my most popular images on Etsy, and it just came together really well. And again sold the original quite soon, but Art in Motion published this as a limited edition print, and I've still got a few of those left too.
Yeah, that's the thing is once you illustrate something and it's sold, like we said before, it's you have to look at the revenue stream from somewhere else and the resale of whether they are prints of nature of machine generated prints. I guess we'll call them. They're mass produced a little bit, but that still gives the people something that otherwise there's only one image. Otherwise, right? How else do you have it? It's sort of it's no, I love this is I can see how the hunter might want that. A person that loves animals would love that, because they love being in the bush. Like there's just a lifestyle that goes with that. And you've left them enough abstractness in there that they can relate to what's going on. It's just he's a very proud buck. He's very he's head up. Well, this one was always interesting because you don't see this every day, this type of image. 4 horses running.
Well, this was
part of rodeo as well. Was that part of your rodeo at times?
Well, this one I did for myself. It was from a movie, and I just really liked these 4 white horses. I just thought they would look so good on a dark background. And the fellow there, he's he's just driving this these horses. And what I did was I airbrushed all the horses and then came back in with colored pencils to finish them off. And then it's a very simple background.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that your backgrounds are simple, and you spent most of your energy and time on the figures, and that really makes them pop off the page. And it also doesn't confuse with what is the most important thing that the
Yeah.
piece of work is about, right? Because you've got, they're simple, but look at the shadows really anchor those horses on the right hand side, like that dramatic umbers and black that's in there.
Yeah.
But I like the looseness, the runny paint. And is your board usually on an angle when you're working, or is that?
I actually have an easel wall. I built a kind of a wall, and it's a full 8x4x8 sheet of plywood that I drilled holes into, and it's at an angle so that I just hang my painting there and work on it. I have my monitor that's right beside, so I usually work from pictures from my monitor because they're just vibrant, more vibrant than if it's a printed out picture.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just work from that. And I actually, if I'm doing something like watercolor effect, I'll lay it down on another table, sort of flat, and do it there so that I can have more control over it.
Yeah. Yeah, stuff starts running off the page if it's too much of an angle on it. If you're especially, well, when you're working wet into wet, the blossoms can really move on you. You lose those little bursts and things. They turn into a run on
Yeah.
you. But yeah, no, I like this image. It's a powerful image. It feels very Ben-Hur to me. Like you just feel like you want to put a couple of chariots behind them a little bit, and they're very
Yeah.
they're classical horses. And I love that they're all white. They're actually silvery looking. They just look like these beautiful silver horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get along with horses. My horses look like German shepherds, so I just kind of
Yeah.
I avoid drawing horses. I just don't draw enough of them.
Yeah.
The anatomy. It's a real BC thing.
Yeah. This image called "Waiting Out the Storm." It was the first image, one of the first images I did after I graduated in '86, and it was juried into a show in Surrey, and with actually one more of my images, and it was I was just shocked because I was still just a newbie. But I lived in Richmond, and which is right by Steveston, which is a fishing boat community. And so I photographed these 4 boats sitting there and decided to put them in a stormy situation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can always remember the smell of Steveston as a kid. When I lived in Richmond as well as a kid,
Oh yeah.
and lived on Four Road. And in those days, played in the ditches.
Yep.
It was a great life as a kid. But
Yeah.
one of my friends, his father was a fisherman, and so every once in a while he'd bring a salmon. We'd get a salmon in the house once in a while.
Oh
Bring
yeah.
them up. But it was when you live in a community like that, I had been away for a long, long time, and we went back a few years ago, and man, did that ever bring me back to my childhood in like just seconds, just getting walking in that area, and the
Yeah.
smells, and the air is so moist,
Yeah.
and it's just the nature. I mean, the neighborhood had changed quite a bit, but I think it's just being in that vicinity, and I've always loved boats. I mean, fishing
Yeah.
boats and tugboats, and they were because I live on the prairies, but it's kind of this is
Yeah.
when you're a coastal city, It's really different. You have all these transportation systems, and you're attached to water and land and mountains, and you can put all those, just go and visit them anytime you want. It's a lovely
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
BC is an artist's playground because you got the
It is.
coast with all the imagery on the coast, and Harry Heine was one of my favorite artists too. He did a lot of boats and marine watercolors,
Yeah.
and he was just such a great artist.
Yeah. No, we've had a lot of really good artists, and you're a good artist as well. You're not, don't belittle yourself at all. These some amazing pieces. This is a powerful piece. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about this character and how this process went, what this is about a little bit?
Well, when I graduated from college, what I wanted to do was something for editorial illustration, because that's kind of part of where I wanted to go. And so I did this image, and I just changed the face to make it my face, not my personal face, but it's an image that was actually in the show with the boat painting.
Okay.
Yeah, I made it. I got 2 images that were juried into the show,
Wow.
and so that was big because back then, this was just one that I had done just after getting out of college.
Yeah.
And so I was still a newbie.
Yeah. No. And yeah, I can remember some of the stuff when I go to college. I don't show it at all these days.
Yeah.
I don't think I can even find it's in a drawer. It's you because you're like you said, you're at that beginning stage. But your work came out in a high level and high quality, which is that's a great thing to get out on the market right away. And when you're younger and you can fulfill the need that people want. Those days there was a lot of magazines and things. That market's kind of dried up,
Yeah.
I would assume. What kind of markets are out there now for people that illustrate? Say, I'll call it the old way, the original way.
Well, there's still a market for hand painted images, because you just can't get that in digital. I mean, it's close, but it's still not the same. And so it's, as an emerging illustrator, what you have to do is find those markets. And it's difficult, but a lot of my markets were found from other images that I did for a certain market. And an art director saw that and gave me a call, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
you mentioned there was a book that you could actually buy a page in and things like that in those days, that the art directors all had those illustrator books.
yeah,
They could
showcase.
purchase from and contact the artist by a phone call in those days. That's all it was, or by mail, because there was no email in those days.
Yeah.
So how do
Yeah.
you send your files to your producers now? Are they high res PDFs, and what do you do for production?
Well, I'm not illustrating too much right now. I'm doing mostly my own images. I'm semi-retired, I guess I could say. But
Yeah.
actually tomorrow I turn 70. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
But I still get calls from different art directors and that kind of thing, asking me if I want to do this or want to do that. It's nice being retired because I can just paint my own paintings,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
I think that's important to do a little bit. If you've been doing work for everybody else all these years, you kind of want to do your own thing a bit. But
Yeah.
have you sourced out art galleries at all to show your work in, or?
Yeah,
Like,
I just don't have many paintings
yeah.
for a gallery. I actually went through an abstract phase about 2 years ago, and I created 35 paintings of just abstract brush strokes and that kind of thing. And I've still got them all sitting here in my studio. So I haven't really I haven't found a market for them yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough market. There's a lot of galleries out there. Actually, there's a lot of artists out there, and I don't know, the galleries are full in some sense, but they're always looking for something unique that they don't have in their roster. Yeah, I love this one too. We just talk Howling
Yeah.
Wolves. Yeah, this one it still reminds me of that the real Call of the Wild, the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
And never cry wolf, I guess. I think part of it is this. It's the backgrounds. It's these. You cannot create really nicely those watercolor generated backgrounds in digital, and when you marry it with the right animal and you leave, it's the white space too you've left on the page, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Realize it's winter, but it's not all white. It's got a light glazing in there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that gives that a breathing space, which is
Yep.
kind of what your style is that way a little bit, and I like that. You don't have to fill the whole page up to tell the story. What is the most important? What is it about? And I think that's a nice thing. Sorry.
I remember my one instructor told me that, and it really stuck with me. It's just as important what you leave out as what you put in. And the images have to have flow in them.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, no, it's and understanding that little breathing space, and this is I love this image, and I can see your work working really well with guy fly fishing. I mean, it was an image that I always liked. I'd see that in Sports Illustrated magazine. I'd say, I want to be there. I want to go fly fishing. I could never. They have a fly fishing rod gifted to me, but I've never used it properly. I guess I'll use the word. I was always in the bush with the fly, but
Yeah.
I've always liked that. You could just see that little hairline going through the dark background, and it's kind of it. I think when you leave the people who look at these, they want to be there. They want to go. That's the feeling you leave with people. They said, I want to be a part of that. I want to be in that image. I want to go fishing where that guy is fishing. And I think that's the difference with a lot of these illustration and a painting. I guess a painting can leave you a feeling where you may want to be, but illustration is really saying, I can put you there. And you can buy this magazine and enjoy that trip down the road, or down the river with it. Anyway, that's been a great conversation. I mean, I love talking to you about your work. It's always too short, but you got Stephen popped in. He's always got crazy questions to ask.
I just had the question everybody wants to know. So to buy one of your originals, what's the price range? Because that's what everybody, at the end of the day, art collectors watch this. And if you don't tell them, then they send me an email and I have to tell them anyway. So if somebody wants to buy something, what's your range of your work?
Well, it depends. Smaller ones are around 700 or 800. And the larger ones, 30 by 40, are 25 to 3,000.
Okay. And that's Canadian?
Yeah.
So $7.50 US or €3. So it's perfect. There you go. Shipping's expensive then. So there you go. Well, happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Well, it was one that I was dreading.
Nah, you look great. You don't look a day over 80. You're doing good. So no, but your work is beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. In a way, I'm very sorry that you're semi-retired. Because I want you to keep painting. I was telling Paul before, it's a better, and I mean this as a compliment, it's a better version of Leroy Neiman. When I
Yeah.
looked at it, like just the initial look, I was like, this is better than Leroy Neiman stuff.
Well, thank
So,
you.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. It puts you up on a wall. Now you can be
Yeah.
perfect. Well, thank you
There
very
you go.
much. Yeah, thank you for the great conversation today, and we'll stay in touch. We'll get you hooked up with some people here, and we get our stuff on Artists in Canada,
Sure.
and we'll get your name out there a little bit. Let's just see. We'll revitalize you. a little
Yeah.
bit.
There you go. So you'll have to come out of retirement for everybody, so you can paint again. So
Yeah.
for all the fans, thank you for watching. We'll be back next Thursday with somebody else, but this week we had Dale. Dale's information will be below, so you can pester him to come out of retirement and buy some of his work.
Yeah, check out his
go
website for
from
sure, and maybe there's an abstract in there that somebody might like.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dale. Have a wonderful day. Once again, happy birthday, Paul. Thank you. See everybody next week. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.